Sinkala, Board Chairperson for the Zambia Airports Corporation. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Mpambachkwanda, the Director of Finance in the Ministry of Transport and Logistics. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and everyone in the House. My name is Ngoza Kasunga Matakala. I'm the Managing Director for Zambia Airports.
Anyone else from the ministry? Please come to the mic. Could you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Morning, honorable members. My name is Nkumbu Siame, Director of Transport in the Ministry. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, everyone. I'm Irene Tembo, Chief Planner from the Ministry of Transport and Logistics.
Good morning, honorable Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and everyone. My name is Gillian Mazimba, Director of Finance, Zambia Airports Corporation.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members. My name is Jeff Komchele, Head of Internal Audit at the Ministry of Transport and Logistics.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, everyone. Cindy Banda, Planner from the Ministry of Transport and Logistics.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Captain Uneta. I'm the Senior Manager Technical Services for Zambia Airports Corporation Limited.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members of this committee. My name is Paul Mrola, Assistant Director Aviation from the Ministry of Transport and Logistics.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Walker Nsimani, Manager Audit Services for Zambia Airports Corporation.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and honorable members. My name is Eddie Mwitwa. I am the Vice Chairperson and Acting Chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, Zambia Airports Corporation. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Ketiwe Lubinganyirenda, Acting Director Strategy, Zambia Airports.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Harriet Nakazwe Angetile, Director Airport Services at Zambia Airports Corporation Limited.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members. My name is Malama Mshinge Siamondo, Acting Corporation Secretary for Zambia Airports.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Thomas Piri, Accountant, Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Andrew Mpundu, Accountant in charge of park issues from the Ministry.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorables, and good morning, everyone. My name is Shadrach Chipika, Senior Planner in the Ministry.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. I'm Zephania Shodovera, Director Air Navigation Services, Zambia Airports.
We are done, Chair, from our end.
All right, thank you. Now, I will call upon the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, witness. My name is Karen Doty from the Office of the Clerk.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Keke Makua from Office of the Clerk.
Thank you. We have permanent witnesses. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. I'm Kenny Chilao, Director Public Debt and Investments. And good morning, PS and your team. I'm accompanied by 2 officers, and they'll introduce themselves.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Mwanza Chitomfa from the Office of the Auditor General.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, witness. My name is Kainda Chivunda from Office of the Auditor General. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the introductions are done. And I just want to inform you that we are live on TV and the radio this morning. And before we start, as a rule, we have to give you immunity. And as you appear before this committee, or indeed any other committee on the Parliament, to assist in the deliberations before it, you are protected under Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, which grants members of Parliament immunity against the prosecution for what they say while in the House. This means that the information you give to this committee cannot be used against you outside Parliament or indeed in any court of law for as long as it is factual. And I hope we are going to be factual. However, should you deliberately or willfully mislead or misinform the committee, the same law can be used against you in the courts of law. I have no doubt in my mind, however, that this won't be necessary, as you won't choose to willfully mislead or misinform the committee. You may now proceed with your submission, which we have received and gone through. So I want you to walk us through your submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Our submission begins from actually just indicating when Zambia Airports Corporation was established, and also the role that the ministry plays in policy issues. We've also given the governance structure at Airports Corporation, the composition of the management, their source of income, which is from rental charges, government grants, ground handling fees, and also we've given the information systems that are there. So we are here to make a presentation based on the audit findings that relate to the failure of the corporation to implement the planned capital projects. This is basically based on the strategic plan for the corporation for the year 2022 to 2026. So we've also indicated the factors which we've selected as determinants to ensure that we implement the strategic plan. However, a review of the corporation's strategic plan revealed that we have failed to implement some of the capital projects. So if you can allow me, I'll go straight to page 4. Yes, which talks about table 1, where the airport services projects have not been implemented. And this relates to the overhaul of the water reticulation system for Mansa, Kasama, and Mongo airports. So, Chairperson, under Mansa Airport, management has noted the auditor's observations And you may wish to note that a contractor by the name of Matchtech Limited was engaged to handle this overhaul of the water reticulation system. But during the execution of the works, the contractor only managed to perform 27%, and a dispute arose, and the contract went for arbitration as a result. So this delayed the works for Mansa Airport. However, a favorable arbitration was awarded in favor of Zambia Airports Corporation Limited on 21st February 2025. So the overhaul of the water reticulation system has been included in the rehabilitation works which shall be undertaken under China Jiangsu. So this will be implemented by May 2025. Under Kasama Airport, Chairperson, I wish to report that management has noted the observation, and you may wish to note that the works were completed on 8th November 2023. We've attached an appendix to indicate that. Under Mongu Airport, Chairperson, we've noted the observation, and you may wish to note that works have progressed up to 98%, and the completion is expected by May 2025. We've attached an appendix to that effect. So under the same heading, we have on page 6, airfields erosion gully control. And Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that over the same erosion of the gully, we had engaged Kansashi Mine. This was after Brickworld, who was engaged as a contractor to secure the gully, failed to perform the contract. The mine, however, following the award of the contract to secure the gully, declined the offer, citing unfavorable conditions. So management proceeded to seek expert opinion from the Geological Survey Department under the Ministry of Mines, and also the Department of Water Resources Development under the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation, on the underlying structure of the airport site to ascertain the cause of that gully. We've attached Appendix 3. The preliminary investigations undertaken by both entities resulted in the following recommendations. A, that a climate resilient drainage plan should be designed for the whole airport, which should consider the topography, hydrology, flood-prone areas, soil type, the drainage pattern, the catchment size, the slope, the geotechnical considerations, hydrology and geology. B, the diverting of the existing concrete drainage away from the active gully, and to redesign to make it wide enough to contain the water current during the rainy season. And C, the backfilling and compacting of the active gully with waste rock. In view of those recommendations by Ministry of Mines and Ministry of Water, management then set out to procure consultancy services for the required design of the climate resilient drainage for the airport and all the associated works. So the Department of Water Resources Development was engaged on 19th September 2023 to undertake the detailed investigation of the site, the engineering drawings, and also the bill of quantities. In September 2024, Zambia Airports Corporation received a detailed engineering solution, including the bill of quantities, to secure the gully, which was workshopped and approved, and Civil Aviation Authority was in attendance. Zambia Airports Corporation Limited has adopted the recommendations from the Department of Water Resources Development and has since engaged the Ministry of Transport and Logistics for funding amounting to 35 million kwacha for the implementation of the required works on the gully. The funding will be made available under the aerodromes funding by the Treasury. That's under head 21. On page 9, we have item 3, which is the power upgrade and installation of power supply genset under Solwezi Airport. Chairperson, a genset has not been installed. That was the observation by the auditors. So management has taken note of the auditor's observation, and you may wish to note that Zambia Airports Corporation Limited took over the mandate to run the provincial aerodromes through statutory instrument number 13 of 2018, the Civil Aviation Act. And operations commenced under Zambia Airports Corporation in June 2018. Before the issuance of the SI, the aerodromes were being run by the government of the Republic of Zambia. After the issuance of the statutory instrument, Zambia Airports Corporation Limited conducted an assessment on the installed facilities to see if it met the required ICAO standards. So this is under International Civil Aviation Organization standards. Among the facilities which were assessed was the power reticulation system. After assessing the reticulation system, it was observed that the feeder to Solwezi Airport was not a dedicated power line, as it was feeding the surrounding compound, which resulted in under voltage being supplied to the airport. Furthermore, the facilities such as the terminal, the fire and tower were fed in a radial and not in a ring circuit. After the observations, a project to have a dedicated power line was undertaken where Zambia Airports Corporation Limited subcontracted ZESCO to conduct the works in order to rectify the issue under voltage and supply to the facility with stable power. Thereafter, another project of internal power reticulation system to sort out the issue of facilities being fed radially instead of under a ring circuit was to be undertaken. The internal reticulation power system project had a generator in it, as it was more convenient to integrate a generator in a system of dedicated power line and ring circuit. Currently, the project of the dedicated power line is underway at 98%, which when completed will provide room for a generator set to be incorporated. At the moment, it would be difficult to incorporate a generator in the system, as the feeder is communal and the electrical system is radial. Therefore, the installation of the generator set awaits the completion of the dedicated power line. We've attached Appendix 4 to that effect. Item 4 is the rehabilitation of the terminal and the air traffic control and transmitter buildings. So there the observation was that snags were not attended to for Kasama, and 90% works completed, and Mongo 27% works completed. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the Kasama snags, when we talk of snags, it's the water seepages, the painting works which were not fully completed, were attended to before the defect liability period elapsed, which ended on 8th November 2024. The works on the snag list have since been completed. There's Appendix 1 attached. Chairperson, the auditor's observation has been noted. That is for Mungu Airport on the rehabilitation works. And earlier I did indicate that the works are at 98% completion. Chairperson, under Mansa, we've noted the observations from the auditors. You may wish to note that the Mansa terminal rehabilitation works, including overhaul of the water reticulation system, shall be added to the scope of the Mansa Airport upgrade project being undertaken by China Jiangsu. I think I did allude to this one as well. Item 5, on the construction of the perimeter fence under Mansa, we take note of the observation that it was not implemented. You may wish to note that the works have been included under the contract for the critical airport infrastructure being undertaken by China Jiangsu, and the contractor has already mobilized. Under Table 2, the issues have to do with the air navigation services projects. The first project is under Societe International de Telecommunications Aeronautics, CITA, Future for Air Navigation Services 1, that is FANCY in short, suite facility. And the observation was that it was still at contracting stage. Chairperson, management has noted the observation. You may wish to note that the contract is currently being reviewed by CITA. Currently, management is making follow-ups with an aim of submitting the contract in the second quarter of 2025. Under the Aeronautic Telecommunications Network Bypass Radio Link, the observation was that it was still in progress. Chairperson, we've noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the corporation reallocated this project to 2025. It is now budgeted for in 2025. The service provider has been found and is currently conducting the proof of concept exercise for 3 months, which will end in April 2025, after which the procurement process will commence. Item 3 has to do with the safety case study, which was in progress, and we've taken note of the auditor's observations. You may wish to note that the project has not been funded yet by the contractor, AVIC, and they are citing non-payment of the interim payment certificate by the government and other contractual matters. Appendix 5 has been attached to indicate what the contractor submitted. Item 4 has to do with the control block equipment, which was noted to have not been done. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the funds have not been secured yet to procure the equipment of the control block. Item 5, the distributed ancillaries information display. The implementation was not done. That was the finding. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the project has been deferred to 2026 to allow the to mobilize. Table 3 is a technical services project, and it has to do with the resurfacing of the runway taxiway pavement under Mfuwe, and the observation was that it had not yet been done. Chairperson, we've noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the contract for resurfacing of the runway from Mfuwe Airport was delayed due to non-distribution of funds. In April 2024, however, Anenui, which is the contractor, was awarded the contract to rehabilitate the runway for 90 days, which would result in the closure of the Mfuwe Airport. Given that the rehabilitation works coincided with the tourism peak season for South Luangwa National Park, the approach of carrying out the rehabilitation works by closing the airport was changed. The works will now be done whilst the airport operations are going on. A new parallel 3-kilometer runway will be constructed and the existing runway will be turned into a taxiway. These works are now in progress under the contract for the upgrade of the critical airport infrastructure undertaken by Anui, who has since mobilized at site. There's an issue of the generator set under Solwezi Airport. Chair, this one I did allude to it, indicating that we had subcontracted, we had engaged ZESCO, and the works are underway and they are at 98% completion. I'll move to page 17, Chairperson, if you may allow. Under table 4, on the commercial services projects. The first item there is the consultancy services for the survey and bulk services. Chairperson, the auditor's observation has been noted. You may wish to note that the Board of Directors approved the implementation of the land use plan. This followed the consultancy work done by NACO, a Netherlands domiciled firm specialized in commercialization of land to grow non-aeronautic revenue. There is need to develop designs or layouts for infrastructure such as roads, drainages, power, water, sewerage facilities, and beaconing of the land to help allocate parcels of land according to the prescribed use by NACO as approved by the board. To achieve the above, a bulk services contractor was engaged to come up with the layouts that speak to the best use of the land, taking into account the topography of the land and the common direction of the wind and all other weather patterns for accurate allocation of the said land, and the required services which are critical input into the planning and implementation of the land use plan. The output of the bulk services will be presented by the end of June 2025 to the external working groups who are experts responsible for approvals. The contract was submitted to the Office of the Attorney General for review and approval in February 2025. And as at yesterday, Chairperson, we did receive feedback from the Attorney General where the draft contract has been cleared. However, there was a realignment in the implementation of the plan from what was earlier envisaged. A number of developments have been undertaken within the land earmarked for implementation of the land use plan. These include the shopping mall and office block. Furthermore, the corporation is currently pursuing an engagement on a medical facility, and a new filling station is currently under construction. Page 20. There's an item with regard to questionable management of infrastructure development projects, which was observed by the auditors. I beg your indulgence, Chairperson, should I go through just to the management responses? Okay.
Yes, please, you can do that. Thank you.
Okay. I move to page 21 under the same item of the questionable management of infrastructure development projects. And table 6 has to do with contract variations that were observed. Item 1 on page 21 speaks to the rehabilitation of Kasama Airport, which was to be undertaken by Matchtech Limited. So there was an observation that there was a cost variation of 966,321 kwacha. Chairperson, the observation was noted. You may wish to note that the cited amount was not a variation. Rather, the contractor was engaged at an initial cost to conduct some emergency works while waiting for the final approval of the contract. The contract amounted to 2,645,839 kwacha from the Attorney General's office. The additional 2 weeks beyond the project completion timeline were attributed to the fact that the contractor was assigned extra works that were deemed necessary. These additional tasks were accommodated within the project's total budget. Item 2 has to do with Mansa Airport, and we had a similar contractor, Matchtech. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the tender for the rehabilitation of Mansa Airport and Kasama Airport were running concurrently, and the best evaluated bidder for both was Matchtech Limited. The date for mobilization was 25th August 2023. During the execution of the works, the contractor only managed to perform 27% of the works, and a dispute arose, as I had earlier alluded to. However, Zambia Airports Corporation was awarded favorably according to the arbitration, and the overhaul of the water reticulation system has been included in the rehabilitation works, which shall be undertaken by China Jiangsu. Item 3, the rehabilitation of Solwezi Airport by Alinta Corporation. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the works were completed in 2024. The rehabilitation of Mongo Airport by Glass Glazers. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that during the execution of the works, variations were deemed necessary. These variations included the paving works, the fencing works, septic tanks, soakaway pits, relocation of service pits, rehabilitation of the substation, and construction of the VVIP toilet. The variations were at 23% above the initial contract sum. These variations were approved accordingly. Furthermore, delays were because of the encroachment on the airport land. A social and economic survey is underway through the Provincial Administration Office. Appendix 2 has been attached to that effect. On page 25, on the delayed completion of works under Mungu Airport, the management response, Chairperson, is that we've noted the auditor's observation. However, you may wish to note that at the time the observations were made, the contractor had applied for an extension of time to execute the variations which were undergoing approval process by the corporation. The corporation granted an extension of time as the reasons for the extensions were deemed valid. You may also wish to note that the corporation has put in place measures to ensure that the project works are expedited, such as having Zambia Airports Corporation Limited engineer permanently on site throughout the duration of the contract to ensure that works are implemented on time and carrying out periodic site inspections. Item D on page 26 has to do with the financial analysis. On page 27, there's the statement of comprehensive income and the failure to achieve strategic performance scorecard target. Our response is on page 28. Chairperson, management has noted the auditor's observation. You may wish to note that the operating expenses to the revenue ratios for 2022 and 2023 are favorable. In addition, the corporation has embarked on the implementation of strategies to reduce the over-reliance on aeronautical revenue. So several projects have started generating revenue for the corporation, such as the hotel at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, which is now open, and also relocating the head office back to KKIA with the aim of renting out the offices, and tenants are renting the commercial complex at head office. This move will reduce the cost on several expenditure lines, such as the IT expenses, cleaning, water and electricity bills. Further, management has successfully been negotiating remission rates with various local authorities for the respective airports. Employee-related costs to revenue ratio. On that aspect, Chairperson, the auditor's observations are well noted. You may wish to note that the rise in staff costs are attributed to the necessary business expansions and operational changes over the past 3 years. Specifically in 2023, the headcount increased to 1,141 compared to 149 in 2022 and 1,052 in 2021. The increase reflects the corporation's strategic focus on scaling up operations and maintaining optimal service levels across new and existing facilities, as well as responding to staff levels required by the Civil Aviation Authority and ICAO. The corporation remained within the approved budgetary limits despite the increase in payroll expenses, ensuring that the corporation operated efficiently. It is also important to note that while employee costs increased, the corporation improved its overall profitability. This is evidenced by the reduction in the payroll to revenue ratio from 77% in 2021 to 51% in 2023, reflecting an improvement in revenue generation, which has mitigated the impact of the rising staff costs. Management is fully committed to controlling the employee costs in line with the business needs and ensuring the sustainability of the operations of the corporation. The ongoing efforts include a continuous review of the workforce requirements, optimizing labor productivity, and exploring technological solutions to manage staffing needs without compromising the service quality. On the net profit margin, the management response, Chairperson, is that we've noted the Auditor General's observation. However, you may wish to note that the corporation has continued to improve its profitability from a loss-making position in 2020 and 2021 to an improved net profit position in 2022 and 2023. On page 30, we've even provided a table 10, on the net profit margins to indicate what I've alluded to. So in 2021, you will note that there was a negative 35%, 2022 14%, and 2023 22%. On the statement of the financial position, there's the return on capital employed. Our response is on page 31. Chairperson, the auditor's observation is well noted. However, we wish to point out that the corporation's huge cash balances for 2022 and 2023 represent the aerodromes project whose works were in progress at the said year ends. These projects included the works at Kasama Airport of constructing the runway and renovations to the terminal building, which were completed in 2023. The cash balance in December 2023 relates to the GRZ specific funding for the completion of the hotel and taxiways at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport. The 1% growth in the return on capital employed in 2023 were compared to 37% in 2022. Let me repeat that. The 1% growth in 2023 were compared to 37% in 2022, and is due to the fact that in 2022 there was a recovery year from the COVID-19 pandemic, and in 2023 the passenger traffic recovered to normal levels. The passenger traffic is a major driver of the corporation's revenue and profit before interest and tax. Under the current ratio, on page 32, our response is that we've noted the observation. However, you may wish to note that the corporation had accrued debt during and after COVID-19 period, which it has been servicing in the past 2 years. Most of this debt will be fully repaid by the end of 2025 and would improve the current ratio. This, coupled with strategies on improved debt management, will be able to result in better ratios going forward. On the increased gearing ratio, our response on page 33, Chairperson, is that we've noted the auditor's observation. It is also worth mentioning that the amount of debt includes capital grants. The capital grants are non-cash flow items. They are more of equity in nature and have no effect on the corporation's ability to pay its obligations. You may wish to note that the management projects a reduction in the gearing ratio to 50% in 2025, as several loans will mature in 2025. Item E, compliance with laws and regulations. Failure to adhere to the circular on personal to holder motor vehicles. The management response is on page 34. Chairperson, the auditor's observations have been noted. You may wish to note that we've indicated a list of the motor vehicles in question. There are 7 that are indicated there. The 8th one was not included, which belonged to the former Chief Executive Officer, and the matter is in court. The Zambia Airports Corporation Board, at its sitting, the 131st board meeting held on 15th November 2024, in effecting the opinion by the Attorney General, resolved that the Government Valuation Department will be engaged to assess the current market value of the vehicles, and management was advised to benchmark with other institutions on how depreciation may be factored. Subsequently, management engaged the Government Valuation Department, and the quotation was received on 16th December 2024. Further engagements and inquiries were made by management, and on 3rd February 2025, letters were shared with the respective persons for the surrender of the motor vehicles, citing reasons of valuation and compensation. So far, 2 of the vehicles have been surrendered, and Zambia Airports Corporation Limited continues to pursue the remainder. F, other information, there's a questionable cost of hire of transport for staff. Our response is on page 37, Chairperson, and we've noted the observations by the auditors. You may wish to note that the decision to outsource staff transport services was made in 1999, as it was deemed cost-effective and efficient. Over the years, the number of non-management staff at Zambia Airports Corporation Limited has increased from 1,016 in 2019 to 1,214 in 2024. In addition, bus routes covered have increased. Consequently, the cost of fuel and maintenance due to inflation have also increased, and hence the cost of staff transportation. An analysis was conducted by management to determine whether outsourcing the service was still cost effective, and this was done with comparison to the cost of providing the service in-house. Below we have a summary of Zambia Airports Corporation Limited staff transport costs for the period 2017 to 2024 and the analysis conducted. So the projections are in that table. And on table 2, we have an analysis of in-house versus outsourced staff transport services conducted in 2022. I don't know whether I need to go through the table, but the figures are there to indicate.
You can skip that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And also table 3, there's an analysis of in-house versus outsourced staff transport services conducted in 2024. So the key assumptions and considerations. Zambia Airports Corporation Limited will have to acquire 27 new buses and recruit additional 27 drivers. The cost of drivers takes into account consideration of the basic pay, housing allowance, employer pension contributions, medical expenses, leave pay, employer NAPSA, and workers' compensation contributions. It also includes the fuel expenses. The fuel expenses were expected to increase due to the increase in the number of routes and the cost of the fuel. Special transport will have to be provided for the drivers to be taken to their respective homes after the last trips. In the case of an employee strike, the corporation would be left handicapped. So risk management is therefore key and an important consideration in outsourcing non-core services. Other non-financial considerations. Focus on core activities. Outsourcing company buses allows Zambia Airports Corporation to focus on its core activities related to airport operations rather than managing transport services. This has led to an increased productivity and efficiency. Access to specialized expertise. By partnering with a specialized transportation company, Zambia Airports Corporation benefits from the expertise and experience of professionals in the transportation industry. There's also flexibility. Outsourcing company buses provides ZAC with flexibility in upscaling or downscaling transport services based on staffing levels or operational needs. The company can adjust the number of buses or routes easily without having to invest in additional resources internally. Business continuity. In the event of employee unrest, such as strikes, outsourcing transport will ensure that such activities will not affect the corporation's operations. Chairperson, you may wish to note that the procurement of staff transport was approved by the Procurement Committee in line with the Public Procurement Act of 2020, and subsequently a contract was entered into with the current contractor. Given that there was no change in the strategy regarding staff transport, the engagement of the contractor did not require board approval as it was an operational issue. Encroachment of airport perimeter, item 2. The management response, Chairperson, is that we've noted the auditor's observations. However, you may wish to note that the corporation is considering several measures to mitigate the risk. The measures include both short-term and long-term measures. Under the short-term measures, the government, through the Western Provincial Administration, has commenced the socio-economic survey to establish the number of settlements that have encroached the airport land for possible compensation and relocation. 2. Zambia Airports Corporation Limited is undertaking the sensitization program to the surrounding communities on the need to secure the airport. And 3, the perimeter fence has been installed to deter people and animals from straying into the runway and to protect the remaining land from further encroachment. Chairperson, what follows, I think, are the attachments, the appendices that I was referring to while presenting. I submit.
Thank you. And before we start, asking questions, I would like you to ask the substantive chairperson to introduce himself. He has joined us online from Uganda. Honorable Chair, please, could you introduce yourself? Chair? All right, we are not properly connected. Now, for the members that have joined the meeting after the introductions, please introduce yourselves as you ask the questions. Thank you. Or you want to do it now?
Well, whichever way it's at your
discretion. Okay. Go ahead and just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and Madam PS, Acting PS. My name is Stephen Kampiongo, MP, Shuangan constituency, and member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning. Morning witness. My name is Brian Munduvile, a member of Parliament from Porokoso and a member of this committee.
Thank you. Now we go to the questions. The members are going to ask questions of clarifications arising from your submission. Honorable Musumali, could you go ahead and ask your question, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Acting PS, for your elaborate submissions. I have two questions in regard to the Suarez Airfield erosion gallery and the construction of a perimeter fence at Mansa Airport. Questions which the committee feel like can shed a little bit of some light in regard to the safety of your airports. In your submission, you have suggested that the corporation is embarking on climate resilient gallery construction, and that the funding is supposed to be done by the Treasury. A 35 million kwacha is earmarked for the works, and these works, this money is going to come from the aerodromes funding. You went further also to articulate the Article 13 of 2018, which was the Civil Aviation Act of June 2018. And Also the requirements to meet ICAO standards at the airports, which are mandatory, and so on and so forth. The erosion gully at Sorezi Aerodrome or airport, I think is not a new phenomena. It's historical, and your efforts to find a resilient solution, climate solution, is actually timely. My question: has the corporation conducted any risk assessments indicating the likelihood and the time frame within which the galley is left unattended with adversely affect the operations of the aerodrome and render it unfit for operations? Let me just expand on this so that for ease of your understanding. The funding is coming from the treasury under the aerodromes fund, meaning it's until that funding is provided that the corporation can act on this climate resilient galley. So it's not the responsibility at this time of the airport until that money is from the treasury is given to the corporation. You understand the context of the question, eh? So maybe you can highlight on that, since you are the ministry who in turn deals with the treasury, not the corporation. So maybe you can give us an indication when you are going to give the money to the corporation so that they can attend to this problem. Otherwise, it's a safety risk. I'll come to the last one, but I think two more. The construction of a perimeter fence at Mansa, works of which were recouped into and to be done by the new contractor. Again, this problem of fencing, especially at the inherited provincial airports, I think it's a thorn in the flesh of the airport, especially that they don't make much from these airports, and due to the lack of fencing has resulted into encroachments and illegal settlements, which has now become problematic because your ministry was not making serious inroads to check your properties, and hence the fences were vandalized and the encroachments came in. I'm alive to the fact that the ministry have got inspectors who are supposed to be undertaking these inspections to avert such kind of problems. Has the corporation recovered the advance payment made to MarkTech, who was the initial contractor, in regard to the rescoping of the works? I think Captain Luneta is very much conversant with those matters. And if they have done, how have the delays in implementation affected the operations of the aerodrome, and what remedial actions have been taken? How have the delays in rescoping the works have affected the operations of the aerodrome? I submit, Chair.
Controlling officer, please, could you answer that question?
Thank you so much, Chairperson. The questions from Honorable Musmali are well noted. The first one has to do with how the ministry is intervening in terms of accessing funding from the Treasury. I wish to point out that the total funding that is allocated to the ministry under both heads 21 and 51 for the aerodromes is about 793 million kwacha in each year. However, a projection of the funding received by the ministry in 2022 we had about 980 million, 2023 130 million, last year we only had 108, and for this year we've not received any funding related to the aerodromes, but that is an issue that we continue to pursue through the Treasury. We hope that we can be funded the 33 million because the issue of the galley is really a big concern in terms of safety, and we hope that once we are funded adequately we can attend to this matter. On the second question related to whether the initial 25% paid to Matchtech has been recovered, let me allow Zambia Airports Corporation to respond.
Zambia Airports.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So, as was noted and highlighted earlier, the matter with Matchtech was under arbitration, and we have successfully, the arbitration has successfully been awarded in the favor of Zambia Airports, sorry. And so we are now in the process where the monetary issues will be discussed. So we are confident that we will get the money back from Matchtech. But I think the key issue to consider and to recall is that all the areas of work that Matchtech failed to deal with, to attend to, will now be covered under the contract with the new contractor, China Jiangsu. I thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Honorable Musumari.
Thank you, Chair. The controlling officer has just submitted that they have not been funded. The aerodromes have not been funded for this year. Considering that the budget has already been passed, and you have also submitted that you are still waiting for funds. Can you indicate where these funds are going to come from? Because the budget has already been passed and you have not been funded, and yet here Zambia Airports are here to answer these queries because the gari hasn't been done. Where are you going to find the funds in view that you have not been funded? Secondly, maybe out of interest, Chair, the issue of this gari and the other concerns at Sorese Airport, because we use that airport. I personally use that airport very frequently. Leaves much to be desired. I want to find out if you have made any efforts, if you have made any efforts to approach Kansanshi Copper Mining PLC, because I'm alive to the fact that they are willing to assist in finding a mutual solution to that gari, and not only to that gari, but also the states of the taxway, the maneuvering area, and the runway. So that is food for thought. But I want you to comment where you are going to get the funding in view that you have not been funded. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And before you comment, let us get back to the chairperson. I think he's trying to get it through to us. Chairperson, please go ahead. Can you hear us? Are you with us, Honorable Chair? You may comment, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. On page 6, on the second issue that has just been raised by Honorable Musomali, we did indicate that we had engaged Kansanshi Mine, but they did not respond in the affirmative. Of course, you've indicated that they are still willing. Maybe the corporation can still pursue the matter with them. Yes. However, we did indicate that we engaged the Ministry of Mines as well as the Ministry of Water, who gave us some recommendations which we are currently pursuing. On the issue of funding, Director Planning under the Ministry is very critical to ensuring that the Ministry secures some funding. He may comment further on the matter.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Honorable Musomali. It is true that the budget for this year has been what? We are constantly engaged with the Treasury, trying to get them to be able to give us a bit more attention with regard to when the funding can come through with regard to the provincial airports. We realize all of you as MPs, but also the trading community and the tourist community are interested in having the airports done. We could ensure that every time we're getting updates or there is favorable movement, we could be informing the committee appropriately.
Honorable Kampyongo.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. I would like to take the controlling officer to the response that they've made to the issue of advance payment recovery. You said this matter was subject to some arbitration. Would like to know, because by standard practice, Madam Chairperson, in your contracts, an advance payment must be secured by an advance bond, an advance guarantee, which again can be invoked by a client if there's failure by the contractor to redeem it through the works. What happened to the advance bond, which this make company had put forward before they got the advance payment?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Permit me to invite our Corporation Secretary
yes, please,
to respond to that as our legal counsel.
Thank you, Chairperson. So a look at the contract would show that the performance guarantee was secured, and it.
Just to bring her chair from there. I think there are other areas where she will be needed.
Okay.
You can get it.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So the performance guarantee was part of the conditions of the contract and is in the contract. But during the time of the arbitration, when we went back now, when we were claiming for the liquidated damages, for instance, we noted that the performance guarantee had expired during the time of the arbitration. But it is part of the contract.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Who was managing this contract? Because to allow that should have been, must have gross negligence, Madam Chairperson, because these are critical documents that are kept monitoring as you are monitoring the project. Who was managing the contract?
Thank you. It is not negligence. I would want to correct that. So the performance guarantee is of a certain duration. So you tie it to the duration of the contract, and then it says within 21 days after the contract expires, the performance guarantee also expires. So it has a duration as well. So when you look at the contract and when the contract had expired, so the works were supposed to have been for a period of about 8 weeks, and then there must have been a variation. This was being managed by our internal engineers. That was the contract manager. And so because the contract was supposed to have concluded within that duration, and it didn't, and then we entered into a dispute, the period which is stated in the performance guarantee, which is tied to the duration of the contract, continued to run. So when the contract expired, the performance guarantee expired as well. But because of what our claim was in the arbitration, we're still covered because we have been granted damages for breach of contract and also liquidated damages for the works that were not completed. So we're still covered.
Honorable Anakoka, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a rider on the question Honorable Kampiongo posed. And maybe what would help us here is, what exactly was, first of all, the nature of this dispute? And what is it that you were awarded? So that we get a little bit of the background here. And you have also just said that when the performance guarantee expired, it was also for the period during which the contract was supposed to be executed, which brings me back to the question he was raising. It means that when the contract was now, in terms of time, at 50%, nobody was checking to see that it's, in terms of actual performance, it's nowhere close to 50%. So we seem to have only discovered when it is actually expired, and that's when you realize even the performance bond is also expired. So 3 aspects to follow-up questions there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You can go ahead, Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Actually, I can see some senior civil servants behind there who have been on contract management and know exactly how these things are managed. Madam, to just give the context, an advance payment is recovered on a pro rata basis as the works are progressing. And therefore, it comes to what my colleague was asking, or the nature of the dispute that you ended up with. Because I don't think if this project was properly managed, you could have ended up with an expired advance bond at the tail end before you recovered the advance payment. So as you respond to the questions that my colleague has posed, you also let us know at what point you discovered that the bond had expired and why the recovery of the advance payment was not done as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. So by way of background, in terms of what the nature of the dispute was, I'll start from there to give it context. So during the course of works, there was a back and forth between our contract managers and the contractor at the time. The contractor claimed that there was a portion of the airport that couldn't be accessed because there was an anthill, and we proceeded to subcontract ZNS at the time. Our senior manager, technical services, could come and speak maybe to the finer detail, but from the summary of what we had produced in the arbitral proceedings is that by virtue of that subcontract, the dispute then started with the contractor. The contractor was of the view that their contract should have been varied to include that aspect of them adding the part which could not be accessed. So because of that, the back and forth started. The duration of the contract then expired. We gave them an extension of the contract for them to be able to complete the works. That was not done. We gave them a further extension. They then, because we were adamant to giving them that, to rescoping the contract to include the other aspect that we had subcontracted, they then proceeded to take us to arbitration. So the arbitration was not commenced by us, it was commenced by them, on the basis that they were claiming compensation events because they were alleging that they could not access a certain portion of the airport. So when the arbitration then started, the works could not continue because obviously the relationship had fractured. So we were also being mindful that if we had engaged another contractor, we would have had further issues with the contractor who was on the ground. So that is the genesis of the claim. So we then filed in a counter claim against them on the basis that they actually were in breach of contract because they did not complete the works despite the many extensions that we had afforded them.
Honorable Musumali.
Thank you very much, Chair. Maybe the Land Council can clear the air further whether this bond was an advance bond or it was a performance bond. Because emanating from what you are explaining, maybe if you can clear that, was it an advance bond or it was a performance bond? I thank you, Chair.
You can respond.
Thank you, Chair. I would have to look at the bond again to see that distinction, whether it's an advance bond or a performance bond. It would be important for me to check that. I could easily do that and come back and clarify if I'm given the opportunity, Chair.
Yes, we would like that. Honorable Mapani, you indicated.
Chair, I think the part of the question that I wanted to ask was covered by Honorable Musumari. However, I just want to find out whether the amount of 1 million was all paid or only partly was paid.
You can respond.
Permit me to just counter check with the finance director.
Yes, please.
I think the question is that was the entire 1 million paid regarding the issue on the floor? How much was paid to Matchtech?
Through the chairperson, it's 25% of the contract value, but we can verify the actual figure, the actual amount which was paid out.
Chair, from the submission she has just given, it means the company is not aware of what they paid. Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, according to the submission, this is indication enough that they are not aware of what they paid. We all know that the amount which they were supposed to be paid was 1 million, and because of the submission, Chair, they don't know what exactly they paid. So I don't know how we can proceed from there.
May we know the exact amount you paid, please?
Yes, sir. We have the actual amount, Chair.
Can you share it with us, please?
Yes, Chair. Honorable members, the 25% of the value of the contract which was paid out was 1,705,37,048 ngwe.
Can you speak through the...
Is that on, this is the Matchtech contract we're talking about. And the Matchtech had 2 contracts, isn't it? So that was on which contract?
Honorable, this was on the Mansa contract. Yes, because Kasama contract was completed. So this was on the 25% advance payment on the Mansa contract.
Chair.
Yes, please.
Chair, with that submission, then we may ask to find out exactly what was the total cost for the 3 airports.
Could a rider? Okay.
Madam Chairperson, with your indulgence, I know we have gotten the explanation from the learned council. Behind the controlling officer is a very senior engineer who has managed several contracts. If I'm correct, and must be very conversant with these issues. Now, what is emerging is that there was a subcontract on this contract after the advance payment was paid. And what we want to know, because a subcontract could have either been entered into by the main contractor and the subcontractor. Who subcontracted? Is it the main client? Because now we want to understand the gist of this, which my colleague was asking, the nature of dispute. Because maybe to help us understand where this is all coming from, Madam Chairperson, if they can clear.
Yes, please, no, controlling officer.
Chairperson, let me allow Zambia Airports Corporation to respond on the matter, because they were the ones that were actually running the contract.
Madam Chairperson, permit me to invite our senior engineer to the floor so that he can give clarity on the scope of works as well as how the works were split. Thank you.
Chief Engineer.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to speak to the issue regarding the subcontract. So the subcontract that was entered into, it was between the client, which is Zambia Airports, as well as ZNS. So initially there were some works that the contractor felt were not captured in the scope, and these works needed to have been done according to him before he could execute another section of his works. So when this came to light, Zambia Airports did engage him to provide us with a quote, and also we did engage ZNS. But these particular extra works were not part of the contractor's works. So when the corporation received the 2 pieces of information in form of quotations, so Zambia Airports made a decision to go with ZNS to have to do those particular works. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Kampuyongo.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Madam Engineer, you are saying you requested the contractor to submit quotations so that you could vary the contract. But then you didn't do that, because I think that should have been the first thing, to harmonize the contract. Then you went to contract ZNS and called it a subcontract. Because you can't call a subcontract which was out of, it should have been a standalone contract, because it was between you and ZNS and not under the main contract. How was the award done, and how much then did you end up paying ZNS on that separate contract? Because we can't call it a subcontract, Madam Chairperson. It sounds like it was a standalone contract between the client and ZNS, because it could have only qualified to be a subcontract if it was varied within the main contract. That's why we need to get a clarification, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Before you respond, I think Honorable Anakoka wanted to have a right.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually asking Honorable Kampiongo to ask that little bit for me as well. But asked the question earlier, what exactly were you awarded from this arbitration? We want to know at the end of it, were you awarded the refund of everything that had been paid to, what's the name of this company again? Matchtech? Or what is it? What was the award exactly? Thank you, Chair.
Chief Engineer.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So I think I will respond to the rider from Honorable Kampiongo, and then I will allow my colleague to speak to actually what we were awarded from the arbitration. I wish to indicate that the Honorable Kampiongo is right. The works that were to be done were initially not part of the scope for Matchtech. So on that account, it is incorrect to consider it as a subcontract. But it was a scope item that required to be done as part of the holistic work. And on that account, since we had already a contractor on site, we did solicit for a quote from him and also a quote from ZNS. The quote that came from the contractor was quite high. ZNS charged us somewhere around 700,000 kwacha for those works, of which the contractor was quoting in millions. So on that basis, ZAC did undertake to award ZNS, who is also a government entity, to deal with that aspect. Then perhaps before I allow my colleague to submit, when the arbitration commenced, part of the things we did was also to counter claim. And in the submissions that we made, we did also include aspects and information to the fact that actually the contractor only performed up to 27%, despite him having been paid the advance payment in full. So when the arbitrator was evaluating the whole case, he also did look at the submissions that we made, including the fact that we're claiming for the advance payment to be paid in full. But then overall, he looked at all the factors and made a judgment which was in favor of ZAC, like we have reported. But maybe I ask my colleague to also shed some more light on the actuals.
Controlling Officer.
Thank you, Chair. We have a copy of what was awarded, and it's indicating that within 28 days of taking up the award, the claimant shall pay the respondent the amount of 918,159 kwacha, 75 ingwe, VAT inclusive, being the offset between the advance payment made to a claimant of 1,705,037 kwacha 48 ingwe, and the value of the work that was done by the claimant as assessed herein. to be 786,877 kwacha 73 ngwe. So the total amount that will be given to ZAC is 918,159 kwacha 75 ngwe. Also, Chair, maybe just to indicate, since we are still on the issue, that the issue of the extension of the performance agreement was an oversight by the corporation, because we should have allowed that we extend, even if the arbitration was going on. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nakoka.
Chairperson, and for me this is my final engagement on this issue, and that's why we needed to know what exactly was awarded, because I think now the picture is clearer. In your submission here, you are saying the contractor only managed to perform up to 27% of the works. So it kind of didn't make sense when a contractor who had been paid 25% only and had performed 27%, which is actually more than the 25%, was in your submission found against. So the answer now comes through what was awarded. So this contractor received 25% but did not perform 27%, because the difference that you are talking about there, the contractor did only what sounds like it's 12 to 13% according to that assessment. So where is this 27% coming from? That's number one. Number two, Chairperson, just to remind ZAC here that this particular query by the auditor is actually talking about weaknesses in management of construction contracts, just so that we don't lose sight. So from your submission, clearly there was a weakness to the effect that in your scoping of these works, when you are awarding this contract to MatchTech, you did not foresee that a particular aspect of the work by MatchTech could not be carried out without this ante issue being sorted out. So that means there were weaknesses in your engineering department there, which filtered into the way the contract was structured, because you admitted it wasn't included in the contract with MatchTech. But you also admit that it was necessary for that to be done. That's why you went to contract ZNS to actually do it, because you understood if it's not done, the MatchTech can't proceed with the second aspect of the project. So the weaknesses are still there, despite you having been awarded in this arbitration issue. So, Chair, I just wanted to make sure that ZAC understands that the weaknesses here as found by the Auditor General do not disappear, so that they don't just highlight the issue of having been awarded. This award is coming on the back of a lot of weaknesses in your own construction management internally here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kampiongo.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and I think my colleague has put it correctly for the controlling officer to understand what we have noticed here. And the fact that we ended up with two contracts, because you can't call, like the engineers acknowledged here, the contract between Zambia National Airport Corporation and ZNS as a subcontract. And this should have been identified from the inception. You ended up with all these disputes because of the not doing the thorough work and due diligence on the scope of works that was to be undertaken. So in as much as you can condemn the contractor, but on your part, there were serious omissions, especially from the technical part. And that's why we're asking who was managing this contract. Because, I mean, if this was an ordinary audit query, it could have been cleared and was not going to be escalated up to the committee. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Controlling Officer.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, Chairperson. I think the concerns that you've raised are well noted, and will ensure that we make an improvement in the way we manage the various contracts. That's why within my presentation, I had indicated that we now have a dedicated engineer who will be on site to ensure that at least these lapses do not recur. Thank you, Chair.
We'll just move on, but not that, the questions were adequately answered. But first, I would also like, to have a ride on. Why was the anti-heel aspect included in the first contract? Or not included, rather, in the first contract? Was it because the first contractor could not go undertaking that aspect of the anti-heel? No.
Maybe our engineer can respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The issue of the anti-heels, Madam, they were not part of the scope. But like many other contracts, I think there is an appreciation that certain aspects could be omitted, and it's for that reason that even contingency funds are provided. So this particular one, Madam, was not part of the scope, the initial scope. Thank you.
Anyway, as we have indicated, we'll continue, but the answers are not adequate. We'll go to the next question. Honorable Mapan.
Thank you, Chair. Question is almost the same on the issue of variations. Chair, it's on questionable management of infrastructure development projects. This is delayed completion of works at the Mong airports. The risks, Chair, are quite high, and the implication is failure to actualize strategic goals to increase revenue and improve customer experience. Chair, it led to loss of funds. In their submission, Chair, they stated that the variations were deemed necessary and were approved. Now the question is, Chair, why didn't they include the works in the valuation assessed scope so that all the works could have been put in the contract? And Chair, in their submission further, they looked at the issue of emergency works. They said the valuation could not matter much because there was some work which were included, which were classified as emergency. Now the question was, how could they have given out the emergency works, Chair, without waiting for the contract to be signed? Arising from that fact, Chair, the question again would be, what could have happened if the contract was not signed? And why was it so urgent that they could give out the works under emergency, which, Chair, could have not waited for the contract? And what are these works? Because if there's valuation work and they said under the emergency, Chair, we wanted to find out exactly what work was done under this name called emergency works. Chair, I submit.
Thank you. Controlling officer, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the issue relates to Kasama Airport, where we had indicated that there were some emergency works amounting to 966. Maybe ZAC can come through, because when I pursued this matter, they did indicate that it's within the allowable 1 million kwacha for emergency works. Maybe they can explain further.
Thank you. Who is taking it?
Madam Chair, it will be the engineer. Thank you.
Chief Engineer, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think on the Mongo issue, Kasama. Okay.
Before we come to Mongo, Kasama. No, the query is Kasama. It's just that he mentioned Mongo.
Oh, okay.
So it says Kasama.
So, Madam Chairperson, for Kasama, you may wish to know that the emergency works arose as a result of the need for us to upgrade all our toilet facilities at all airports to VVIP standard. And this is at the backdrop of the fact that when the initial assessment was done, the budget that we had, which we were running with, was quite limited. So we had a limited budget of about 14.9 million, which was to be dispersed at all the four aerodromes that we were to rehabilitate. So certain aspects of what needed to be done were assessed in that light. But as we progressed, there was, I think, an instruction that there was a need for us to upgrade all the facilities to VIP standard. So the VIP toilet, which initially had, the VIP had initially no conveniences, so this is one of the critical aspects that was included in the scope for the emergency works, as well as some painting works that were required, because then now we're approaching the time when the airport was to be commissioned. I submit, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any more further questions on this one? Okay. We'll go to the next question. Honorable Anakoka.
Chair, thank you very much. I thought there was actually going to be a follow-up question on this Kasama project. So allow me to make that follow-up question, Chair, just before I move to another item. The engineer here has given an explanation, but I was just reading through the submission at the same time. The full contract was 2.6 million, the one that you are waiting for approval from the Auditor General, from the Attorney General, sorry. And in between, you carried out what you are calling emergency works at nearly 1 million. Are you saying that this 966,000 that was spent did not require the contract under which it was done to be subjected to approval by the Attorney General? Can you tell us what you are saying there?
Please
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So as alluded to earlier, we did identify some works that were considered emergency in nature, and in so scoping the said works, the value was determined to be less than 1 million kwacha. And the process was followed in terms of this being subjected to an evaluation process, as well as submission to the procurement committee, where it was finally approved. Given the value that was involved at the said time, it was then determined that the works could be procured because it was under the 1 million threshold. However, with time we then identified additional works that needed to be done, as well as us being put, well, we were able to find additional budget now for the fuller scope of work. So with that then, again with the rescoping, we realized that the amounts involved would then now exceed the threshold, and therefore even post-approval at procurement stage, this was now subjected to the process of getting a contract verified through the Attorney General's office.
Chair, through you, we should be alive to the nature of the operations of the airports. Sometimes they are under stress when it comes to something that has been noted as emergency. They've got an option, but they have just got to do it. Emanating from the explanation from the senior engineer and MD, the works initially they were under the threshold where they can make the decision, and which they did, and under normal circumstances you find that the scope of works that they normally give initially, you find that there are some additional works on site when you go on site. The issue of Kasama Airport is not new. The infrastructure was aged, and I think Zambia airports have done a lot, including Mbala, something that has been explained, and through the amendment, that's when the threshold value went up. I think emanating from Captain Runeta's explanation, works like which are considered like emergency include like maybe, for example, toilets, and we all know the role that these toilets play. It's very, very rare. I think on that scope, Chair, I urge the committee that we should proceed with the other matters which are ahead of us. Thank you.
Honorable Anakoka.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, this 1 million threshold, where does it exist, in your internal policies or in the PFM? Where did you get it? Thank you, Chair. And the reason we're asking this question, Chair, is because we want to understand the understanding by National Airports Corporation of their obligations to comply with the Public Financial Management Act. So is the 1 million your internal procurement policy threshold, or did you get approval from somewhere of this 1 million threshold? Thank you.
If you can just jot that one down as we take the second question from Honorable Mapani.
Madam Chairperson, I think the question which I wanted to put across is exactly what Honorable Anakoka has submitted. However, Chairperson, I just wanted to find out whether Zambia Airport Corporation is different from other national legal entities. If that is not the case, then Chair, all the normal procedures at whatever level ought to be complied with, because that's what the law says. And if the law says that, Chair, then only that ought to be done. Anything or any act out of it, Chair, is deemed not necessary or is void, because it's not correct. So I want to believe answers ought to be given the way we are asking them, because that is the legal mandate of us to extract information from them so that we are at the same pace and we move together. Chair, I submit.
Thank you. Controlling Officer.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. We've taken note, Honorable, of the legal provisions and the need for us to adequately respond to the questions that are being raised. The issue of the 1 million threshold, yes, I think it's an issue which is in the procurement regulations, but ZAC can still amplify on the matter.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. In the absence of our procurement manager, permit me to ask our legal counsel to give us some guidance on that. Thank you.
Counsel, please.
Thank you, Chair. So it is in the regulations. There was an amendment last year for procurements that are within 1 million kwacha. You are able to procure without, so there's an amendment to Section 77 of the Public Procurement Act where you are allowed to procure for as long as it's within 1 million kwacha. So the threshold which is prescribed is that of simplified bidding, and the amounts attached to it is 1 million kwacha. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Anakoka.
Yes, Chairperson and the Council has said this amendment came in last year, and this particular procurement we're talking about was not done last year. So at the time that this procurement, unless I'm mistaken, at the time this 966,000 was incurred, what was the threshold? Just so that we can make progress, I think we can give our counsel on this matter. I thought initially they were going to say it's actually in their own internal policies, but clearly they are alive to the fact that they are obliged to follow the Public Procurement Act. But we, I think, are in agreement that when this particular procurement happened, the 1 million threshold had not yet come into effect. So maybe just to counsel and say, let's be very clear that at all times there is a law that is above any other internal arrangements we might be making. So you can't have a procurement committee that has got powers that exceed that which is allowed by the Public Procurement Act. So I think we can move on from there if we are all of that same understanding. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, please.
Chairperson, maybe just a clarification on when the amendment was done. Director of Finance was just actually indicating that it was in 2022. So it was within that period. Yes, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the procurement department? No, he should have been here or she should have been here. What happened? What's the reason why he's not here?
Madam Chairperson, unfortunately we currently have a vacancy. We do not have a senior procurement manager at the moment, and this is why we were unable to bring someone to represent that office. We did feel, however, that if there were any legal questions arising from the procurement process, that our council would assist as much as possible. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Anakoka.
To move on, Chair. I was just noting that this 966,000, even that particular contract on Kasama still needed an additional 2 weeks beyond the completion timeline. And according to their submission, the contractor was assigned extra works that were deemed necessary. Again, there is extra works we are seeing here after the contract had been done. So it talks to the issues that the Auditor General has talked about or highlighted of contracts management. That really needs to be strengthened. But Chair, with your permission, I can move on, or maybe they want to comment on that before we move on to the next item.
Controlling officer, anything to say on this one before we proceed?
Your observation is well noted, and as indicated, we've put in measures to ensure that we strengthen the management of our contracts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Anakoka, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to move to the issue of the current ratio. which is, on what page is that? But even as I'm looking for the page, Chair, I can... On page 31. 32, thank you. Right. You have indicated in your response that there are some measures that are being taken to improve this ratio. Can you highlight some of those measures, some of the strategies that you have put in place in order to deal with this situation? Thank you.
Controlling Officer.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. On the issue of the current ratio and the strategies, let me allow the MD and ZAC to respond.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable, for the question. You may wish to note that following the COVID pandemic, we had to borrow money in order for us to just keep the corporation running, as well as to pay salaries. And from that, we are currently still servicing that debt, so that is what speaks to our current ratio. Would like for you to note, though, that most of this debt should be fully paid by the end of 2025, about 50% of that debt. So the expectation, therefore, is that the 2025 numbers will look healthier in terms of the current ratio, just by virtue of the fact that we would have serviced most of this debt by the end of the year. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on this one? Honorable members? We'll proceed. Honorable Mapani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the next question is on compliance with laws and regulations, failure to adhere to circular on personal to order motor vehicles. This is deduced from page 151 of the Auditor General's report, whilst from their submission, Chair, is on page 30, is on page 33. Chair, the implication is quite high, the risk is quite high, and implications loss of government funds through litigations. Chair, in their submission, they stated that letters for surrender of motor vehicles have been shared with the respective persons and that 2 vehicles were surrendered. Now, Chair, the question is, what is the value of compensation so far paid for the 2 vehicles surrendered compared to the value determined by the valuer? Chair, the second question is, why has there been a delay of approximately 10 months in enforcing the Attorney General's advice to the corporation to refund and repossess the vehicles? Why has it taken that long? Chair, maybe just to finish asking questions, Chair, I still want to find out why, despite the circular being prepared and released by Cabinet, the corporation still went ahead to violate circular number 17 of 2016, where there was a clear abolishment of personal to order cars. Chair, I submit.
Controlling Officer.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. On the issue of the loss of funds and also the value of compensation, I'm reliably informed that ZAC had a board meeting on Saturday 15th, where they wanted to implement also in relation to enforcing the Attorney General's guidance related to the issues. In terms of the actual amounts, ZAC can actually indicate, and also the refund that they've effected so far as at yesterday.
I would like to hear from the board chair what was resolved.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and perhaps permit me, for the benefit of the members, the honorable members who are not here at the time introductions were being made. My name is Evyanji Sinkala, board chairperson of the corporation. In terms of the question that has been put by the honorable member, Honorable Mapani, in terms of compliance with laws and regulations, particularly failure to adhere to the circular that cancelled the awarding of personal to order motor vehicles to members of staff. I'll contextualize my response, honorable members, through the chairperson by giving some historical background. True to what Honorable Mapani has indicated, the circular, I think, came in force in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. 2016, correct. And I find myself in some difficulty trying to possibly comment as to why there was no enforcement at that time, because this board, where I am the chairperson, was only ushered into office in September of 2022. And one of the issues that we had inherited was the issue pertaining to personal to order motor vehicles. And there was, I think we did pass about 2 to 3 resolutions relating to these motor vehicles. Item number 1, or the issue that when this issue was brought to our attention, the first position was for us to seek an opinion from the Attorney General. So if our minutes would serve us correct, the first resolution had to deal with the board resolving that we consult the Office of the Attorney General to guide us on how to deal with this matter. There was very little information, or simply no information, that was brought to the attention of the board pertaining to this, to the circular of 2016. So we were not aware. And it is at the point when Attorney General, it took a bit of time, but it was when the Attorney General responded that this particular issue pertaining to the circular was highlighted in his response. We felt again the reading of the opinion that there were a few areas that were not so clear, and we had directed management to engage the Attorney General further to clarify a few issues or areas that were potentially could expose the institution to legal ramifications that would be adverse to the corporation. Up until I think the last opinion was rendered, which had touched on the issues that we had raised, speaking to the fact that it was now the final position of the Office of the Attorney General that we do refund employees who were given personal to order motor vehicles and retrieve the motor vehicles from them. We also, in our deliberations, Madam Chairperson, considered the aspect of depreciation, that there was that aspect, and we further guided or directed management that we possibly engage the the government valuers to give us or ascertain the true value of the motor vehicle, so that we could then recover from what we had already deducted from these employees, because they had paid for these motor vehicles. So now we needed to know how much, was it the full value that we needed to refund, or we needed to withhold a certain amounts, that from due to the depreciation, as it were. Now that is the exercise that took a bit of time from the guidance or the directive we gave to where we are now, where we are saying that only 2 employees have responded positively by surrendering the motor vehicles. However, we have 2 options presently, Madam Chairperson and honorable members, which is, 1, we could I think the last directive we gave was that in the interest of trying to have a smoother process, we could refund them in full for what they paid for, and then recover the motor vehicles and deal with the issues of depreciation later. Or we needed to take a position as a board as to whether we enforce the opinion of the Attorney General to the latter without factoring in the aspect of depreciation. So that is where we were as of just pardon me, Madam Chairperson. Did we pay?
Yes, we did. This is the 1.26. We paid this.
All right. Oh, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Thank you for indulgence. I've just been informed by the Managing Director that as of yesterday, we paid to all the affected former employees of the corporation a sum of 1,261,209 kwacha 28 ingwe. A full refund. So this entails that other processes of recovery will be instituted, because failing which obviously offenses that could be avoided, among them that top on my head could be theft of motor vehicle. But we do not want to go there, and it is my hope and desire that we don't go there. Why? Because these affected employees have received their monies and they cannot continue to hold on to motor vehicles that are not theirs. Maybe if I could press a little bit further, just to give further context, Honourable Member, around just this issue of motor vehicles. Like I said, there was a bit of limited information, like I indicated, speaking to the circular, but I would want to believe the board rose to the occasion in consulting with central government through the office of the Attorney General. We were guided and we have implemented that opinion as submitted. Perhaps maybe let me limit my response before I open myself up for further and follow-up questions. I thank you.
Honorable Mapani.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the submission that has been made by the Chairperson. However, Chair, I just want to find out, in his submission, he indicated that they paid everyone, or they refunded everyone to the tune of 1.something million. Now, my question would be, did they pay even those who have failed to return the car, or what is the position? The cars.
Please respond.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you for that question, Honorable Mapani. The persons or employees that were paid are those that have failed to return the motor vehicles. And those, all of them, sorry, all of them, each all of them. I thank you.
Chairperson, maybe I should add that there's one which is still under the courts, so it must be only the 7. Thank you.
Honorable Nakoka.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's gratifying that the board chair has, in fact, as he was indicating what their preference as the board was leaning towards, then he was informed by the MD that they have refunded in line with the advice of the Attorney General. Bringing in the issues of depreciation would have complicated the situation unnecessarily. So maybe my follow-up question would be, has there been any communication to these individuals, including the one who is taking the matter of the court, because I have a second leg to this question. Has there been any communication to them that explains what this payment you've done to them is in lieu of what it's all about, or you've just dispatched money to their accounts and they have no communication as to what it is that is expected of them? And then the second part of my question would be to this one the one who has taken the matter to court. What is the dispute as things stand? Thank you.
I don't know. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you for that beautiful question, Honorable Anakoka. I don't know whether I should take over from MD, but I would be more than happy to. You see, in my other life, I'm paid to talk. So pretty much we can be here the whole day. But I'll give it a try. Honorable members, at the time when a decision was made, of course, before we came into office, the contract pertaining to the sale of these or disposal of these motor vehicles was conditional. All right, it was a conditional sale. On the which condition was that the corporation needed to get consent or authority of the shareholder to sell or to convey property or title in the motor vehicles. So having failed to get that consent of the shareholder through the legal advisor to government, then obviously by implication there can be no sale, because one of the most crucial condition of the sale was consent of the shareholder, which was not granted or given. So naturally then the sale is invalidated, so to speak. In terms of the other bit of the question speaking to the matter before court, this has to deal with the former managing director of the corporation, who amongst the relief he's seeking is the conveyance of the motor vehicle. Okay, now we could not convey to him at time of separation because there was no consent that was given, and obviously he's aggrieved, or he was aggrieved at the time and took the matter to court. So what does the picture look like? We await the judgment of the court. The judge should be able to guide us in terms of how we proceed. However, being a prudent institution with a bit more foresight in terms of what could be the likely outcome of that judgment, remember, the motor vehicle was made subject of a contract between the corporation and this employee, and the motor vehicle was assigned to him as personal to holder, and that's what gives him impetus to believe that he stands a chance of succeeding. Armed with the final opinion from the Attorney General, we have been interrogating the very, very strong possibility of going back to the judge and highlight the issue of the secular, highlight the issues of an opinion that our hands are tied as an institution. We cannot do what the plaintiff in the matter seeks for us to do, because we're not capable. We're incapable to do that. So that is how I would want to respond to that question in very few words. I don't know, Honourable Member, if there is another aspect to the question I've left out. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Honourable Mapani?
Chair, not necessarily a question, but I think a word of caution. Chair, when Cabinet issues a circular, it's binding to everyone, regardless of the status. And for this circular to be ignored, Chair, that is wrong. So we want to advise the corporation that next time, Chair, they should take these circulars seriously, because it's from these circulars where we'll be able to manage our corporations prudently and within the legal lines. So to deliberately, I will use the word deliberately, unfortunately, to ignore such circular, Chair, that is wrong. So after 2016, people continue to perform the same act which was stopped. Chair, deliberately, to me, I would take a position that the corporation ought to respect the laws of the land. Chair, submit.
Thank you. No, we are looking at time. No, the members must go back, into the house in less than 1.5 hours time. So if the questions could be short and precise, and so should the answers be. Thank you. Honorable Anakoka.
Thank you. Very quickly, Chairperson, this circular was intended to deal with the issue of costs. So maybe the board chair can share with us what is it that has been done in normalizing the situation so that you don't have this arising in future? In other words, what have we done with what kind of amendments have we done to the current contracts? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson, and thank you for the question once again, Honorable Anakoka. And maybe before I press on with that, with my answer, permit me, Madam Chairperson, just to acknowledge the advice that has come through from Honorable Mapani, that indeed the sentiments are well noted and appreciated. And it is the position of the corporation that we will endeavor at all times to operate within the ambits of what the law and regulations say or permit for us to do. With that said, what have we done? I'll give a very simplified answer, and that answer finds comfort in the fact that what we are paying directors or employees is that which has been approved by the Emoluments Commission. Short answer, as demanded. However, I stand ready to expand on that. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. The board chair has indicated to us that he can talk the whole day, So we don't want him to go that route. I think we will proceed to the next question. Honorable Musumari.
Thank you very much once again. I'll be very short and precise to the points, considering that you have indicated the time factor which is available to us before the afternoon session. Controlling officer, the questions I'm going to ask are pertaining to the hire of staff transport. In your submissions, you have elaborately done a cost-benefit analysis on the decision of outsourcing the transport element, staff transport element of the corporation. A decision to outsource was made in 1999. After considering the pros and cons, whether it was cost effective to maintain an in-house fleet or outsource it from transporters. This analysis that you have given, it shows that the trend is the same. From the one that existed in 1999, which necessitated the corporation to do the outsourcing. I've gone through this cost-benefit analysis, and it's favorable that outsourcing is cheaper than buying 27 brand new buses from Toyota Zambia, and I can see Mr. Semani is shaking, is agreeing in consternation. Yes. However, the Auditor General still found that we need to be clear, and he has questioned that to the contrary. The committee would like to find out, in far as the coverage of these buses, in terms of distances. Chair, I should believe that this hire of transport, it includes 3 designated airports, which is Simon Masaka Pwepwe, Kia, the Kaunda International Airport, and Halimwanga Kumbula Airport. As Mufuwe, I think it's not covered. Maybe it has been covered now, I don't know. They have got to explain. So we would like to find out what distance does each bus cover to enable to be able to consume 1,000 worth of fuel. Because in your analysis you have indicated that the estimate is 1,000 worth of fuel to be consumed per bus per day. Further, in your submission, you have stated that a cost-benefit analysis hiring of transport was less costly than buying in-house. Yes, a situation which you have seen from the figures. How many drivers are currently employed by the corporation? How many drivers are currently employed by the corporation, and what do they drive? What maintenance work costing approximately 10,000 kwacha per month, bring the figure maybe to 120,000 per year for each bus would the corporation carry out. I think this relates to the overall costs for maintenance or operations if you were to have the buses in-house. According to this figure, I think they are estimates. Did the board approve the policy to provide the transport for non-management staff as opposed to paying them transport allowance? There are two categories at Zambia airports of staff. They are the middle management, the managers, and then the lower grades. I think at the time of outsourcing these buses, I know we have got special employees like ATC, which have got their own bus due to the nature of the operations. Others also shift work and other things, and so on and so on. And also the drivers themselves, after they have done the service, they have got to be taken to their respective homes, door to door, and very early in the morning again, they have got to be picked from their respective homes to go and pick up the buses from the airport, and then that cycle goes on and on. I think we are getting note of the questions. And then last but not the least, did the board approve? Okay, that one I've asked. But are you in a position to share with the committee the board approval to hire instead of buy the buses? I think this is referring to if the approval was given to the board at all, then are you able, do you have evidence to that effect that the board approved this decision? Despite that this thing has been ongoing, I think what's the duration of the contract for this hire thing? Because there is also an aspect of the transporter recouping his investment, that kind of thing. I'm alive to this question, and maybe we can just shed the light on this aspect. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Controlling Officer.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think the issue of non-management staff as opposed to paying the others who are not in management relates to the functions of their airport. Sometimes they work at very awkward hours, and they may need reliable transport to take them to their various destinations. However, on the routes covered, the number of drivers and the maintenance works, which would cost 10,000, maybe those that did the cost analysis, ZAC, you can come through to elaborate more.
Please respond, Zaki. Zaki. Zaki.
ZAC.
ZAC, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair. As I wait for our strategy, Acting Director Strategy to respond to the specifics on the costings, permit me to just clarify that in terms of seeking board approval, Because this is your normal business and there was no change in policy, the route that was followed in terms of approval, and that has always been followed, has been through the procurement process. So every time there's any renewal of contract with relation to transport, that would be subjected to an evaluation committee and then the submission made to the procurement committee for further review and approval. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Musumali, for that question. I'll speak to the routes that the buses are currently taking. So we have a route on Matero, 6 miles in Guerrero area. We also have a route through Chalala, that's around Goldcrest, Moore, St. Patrick's area, and also town at Regent College. Honorable, you may wish to note that the routes have increased over time for the simple reason that we have more employees, currently at about 1,200. And obviously people have built houses in different areas, hence the routes that are being taken. In terms of the average distance that each bus moves per day, that's between 80 to 100 kilometers. Relating to the maintenance costs, these were based on what it would cost to have these vehicles serviced at Toyota. I must state that these are actually estimates and are not exact figures. In terms of the board resolution, Chair, I would request our company secretary to comment on that particular issue.
Company secretary.
Thank you, Chair. I could have missed the question on the resolution. Kindly just repeat yourself. Thank you. Sorry, what was that?
Did you get a board resolution for this?
I think this has been ably tackled by our managing director. Yes. It was tackled by our managing director. She indicated that it's a procurement process, and we have also submitted that it's an operational issue that doesn't require board approval. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Anakoka.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair. We have taken note of the Managing Director's submission. And I think our initial attitude is that we do not think this can be classified as a normal operations that need not be specifically dealt with by the board. For two reasons. Already the submission made by the director next to me here is talking about the routes expanding because people are settling all over the place. If I'm not mistaken, 6 miles is in which district? It's in Chisamba, which means soon you'll be going to Kabwe, soon you'll be going to Mumbwa to pick up employees. Because on what basis are you going to say we are only ending in Chisamba, but we are not reaching Kabwe? There will be no basis. So that's the one aspect. We think it's a matter that the board must engage with. The second aspect of this is that in essence you are actually ignoring the issue that we think you should have been talking about. Accessibility of your airports, not only to you as members of staff, but to the traveling public. We are not hearing you talking about KKI airport being accessible via public transport for the traveling public. If those projects are in the offing, it's something that we think you need to be addressing. But my third leg of this, on this issue, is that you are providing a benefit to staff, and this is something that members of staff might not be very happy they hear it. You are providing a benefit to staff that could actually expose you to tax obligations. This is a benefit to members of staff, especially that you are taking them right to their doorsteps. You are not taking them to the nearest point from which they can get on public transport. You are delivering them. So in essence, you have equated this arrangement similar to providing personal to order vehicles almost. And that can potentially expose you to tax obligations. I'm sure your finance personnel understand what we're talking about. So we think this matter in that context needs to be addressed by the board, as opposed to just comparing the cost of hiring and the cost of buying these vehicles and owning them. Probably none of those things you are comparing should actually be happening. So the justification you are arriving at might be ignoring the fundamental issues. So Chair, a mixture of a question and a comment in that regard. Thank you.
Honorable Musumeli.
Chair, maybe just a rider and also as an inclusion. You have just mentioned the director in your submission. She has just mentioned the routings for Kia, but I should believe that the figures involved here, the compound figure for all the other two remaining airports, meaning Harimwanga Kumbula and Simon Mwasaka Pwepwe. Simon Mwasaka Pwepwe, maybe they have got two, the one for what's the one, Misundu and whatever, Chifu, and then the other one for Hillcrest, and then also Livingstone. I want you to be clear that these figures that we are talking about include these other two airports. And in view of the increase in human capital, which is also necessary that to meet the airport operations, we should also be recognizant that the airport like Kia is based in Chongwe. So the issue of people going to other districts, no, it's within your consideration. So maybe confirm to us that these 10,000 kwacha, or your figures which you have put here, they include all the routes of the three designated airports, because except Mufue, which is always loss making. Maybe it will be clear if you give us the compound figure of this. I submit.
Thank you, Controlling Officer.
Thank you, Chair. The analysis actually includes all those other airports, but they could ZAC can further comment. And the issue of the board actually considering this matter, I think is well noted. The board chairperson has a further comment on the matter.
Chairperson.
Madam Chairperson, I'll be very brief.
Thank you.
But I'll meander around nonetheless. Thank you so much, honorable members, for the beautiful questions that have come through. But again, in a similar manner, I think it's important to contextualize my response so that we fully benefit from my response. In terms of Honorable Nakoka's question regarding the transport issue should have received, or at least should have been presented before the board for consideration, it's well noted. And prior to this engagement, sometime last week, when we were trying to digest the material that is gracing this meeting this morning, we agreed amongst ourselves as board members the need, perhaps, I think, to have a deeper introspection and interrogation of the subject matter, which is whether we should keep the status quo or find an alternative. Having said that, I just want now to jump to the defense of the current status quo. Honorable members, you will note that I'll give a classic example of Simon Mwasakapwepo International Airport, formerly Ndola Airport. We are expected to open that facility 2 hours prior to the earliest flight, which if it's international. But by standard, we are supposed to open to the public at least by 05, meaning that our staff must be on station by 04. That would imply or mean that the staff should be picked up from 02. Now the question would be, where would an employee get on a bus, public transport, at 02 to take them to the airport? So the practicality, obviously, I mean, it's impractical, because as we know, there are very few bus operators that operate beyond midnight. But even if that was the case, we are also cognizant of the location where our facility is. It's a bit of a distant place and isolated. So the aspect of security for our staff was also considered in continuing with this practice. I should actually hasten to mention that every year, or after 3 years, we do reassess the need to continue with this practice. I think this ties to what Honorable Msumali had mentioned, that this transport contract is time bound. Presently, the contract is running for 3 years. So after 3 years, before we engage into another contract, either by way of extension or finding a new transporter, we come back to the drawing table and interrogate these variables to see whether there's been a shift or not, or to find reason as to whether we should continue on this path or not. So there's that recognition on the part of the institution. But like I said again, we've taken the guidance and the thoughts of the honorable members in this room, and we will schedule a date when we can re-interrogate this matter further and see if at all we can come up with a different position. In terms of, I think that is, it's a solemn pledge I'm making, Madam Chairperson, that I will, working with the Office of Company Secretary, make sure that this is an agenda item at a special board meeting to discuss with this matter. I think Honorable Msumali, you may have lost me, I don't with your question. Oh, with all the figures. Oh no, yes.
Point
no,
of order, Madam Chairperson.
Honorable Kasandwe.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I'm Anthony Kasandwe, Member of Parliament for Bangor constituency of Samfya District in Ruapura Province. Point of order on the board chair, Madam Vice Chair. The issue and the question is not about what time to pick the staff. The issue at hand is not about picking staff, I repeat. It's about owning vehicles or hiring. So is it in order, Madam Speaker, to have digressed from providing an answer, owning vehicles versus hiring, and going into an aspect of talking about what time staff should be picked? I submit, Madam Speaker. Madam Chairperson.
Mr. Board Chairperson, will you speak to the question instead of going the other way, talking about times of picking up the staff, but rather the costs incurred in transporting them, whether you should own vehicles to pick them or not. Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, thank you for the guidance given. My response is our align and abide, Madam Chairperson, with the response that has been given or provided through the controlling officer, which is to continue with the status quo where we are outsourcing until such a time that a different policy or position is taken. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kasandwe. You okay? Sure. Honorable, well, I think we'll proceed. Honorable Kampiongo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just, I think, to conclude, it's just to find out from the controlling officer and the team what they've done with regards to the encroachment issue which was flagged off by the Auditor General in respect of Mongo Airport. You have, in your response, given us short-term measures and also long-term measures. I'll focus on the long-term measures where you have indicated that you have secured a new piece of land through the provincial administration. So we would want to know if indeed you have secured a title deed for that piece of land to avoid the current challenges you have on the old airport of encroachment, which obviously by CAO standards needs to be avoided. And if you have secured the title deed, when do we expect you to commence the construction of this new airport site? And Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson, since I'm taking the floor for the last time, as they are responding, we would like to just the controlling officer to correct the record, because when you are conferred with the immunity, it's for you to be factual without misleading the committee. The issue of legislating and amending pieces of legislation is our core business here. In your submission, as you were responding to Honorable Anakoka over the procurement and the scope and the thresholds, you went on to submit that the Act number 17 of 2023, as it stands now, was amended in 2022. Madam Chairperson, that's not the correct position, and like I've said, we refer to it as Act number 17 of 2023, and it was amended on the 22nd of December in that year. So let's have that record corrected so that we don't capture something incorrect on our record. I submit, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Controlling officer.
Chairperson, we take note of that guidance that has been provided by Honorable Kampiongo. Thank you so much, and we are aligned to your submission. And also, I just wanted to comment on the issue of the Mongo Airport. As indicated in our submission, the Western Provincial Administration is undertaking land surveys, so we don't have a title deed yet. So it's still in the process. And in terms of when the construction of the new airport will commence, it will be subject to the procurement processes. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions, follow-up questions of the honorable members? None? Well, thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our interaction. And we are thankful that you are able to come, and especially that you are able to come with your board chair, because it's very important in these meetings you have with us. You realize how important a board chairperson or member is. They are the lawmakers in your establishments, so there are certain questions that we ask that we need answers or responses from the board chair. With this said, I lift the immunity conferred on you earlier on, so that you don't go wandering around and saying things you shouldn't be saying, thinking you still have the immunity. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. There you have it. That's the Zambia Airports Corporation Limited making its submission before the Committee on Parastatal Bodies. Remember, the Committee on Parastatal Bodies is considering the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of parastatal bodies and other statutory institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2023. And that's the only witness for today that the Committee on Parastatal Bodies was dealing with until tomorrow. And so be sure to join us at 14:30 for a live broadcast of parliamentary proceedings. From me, Claudette Sindaza Jonga, my two sign language interpreters, that's Jason Manda and Chola Kalma, not forgetting the entire studio and production crew. Thank you for your time and do have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.